All right, let's jump right into a really wild idea. Seriously, this might be one of the biggest theories you'll hear about. It's an attempt to link physics, biology, and even consciousness all into one single framework. It's called the emergent informational ledger theory. So, at the very core of this whole thing is one powerful metaphor. I want you to forget thinking about the universe as some giant empty space with stuff in it. Instead, I want you to imagine it's a story that is constantly writing itself, learning, and getting better. Basically, a living autobiography. So that leads us to the big question that kicks this whole explainer off. What if the physical world we see and touch, what if it isn't some pre-existing stage? What if it's actually the output, the literal pages of a story being recorded, moment by moment? And that, right there, is the main idea of the emergent informational ledger theory, or EILT for short. It suggests that reality, at its most basic level, is just information, and the universe we know is the process of that information being written down into a permanent, unchangeable record. Okay, so this whole theory really stands on four key pillars that we're going to break down. First, the idea that reality is basically a computation writing its own story. Second, that space-time itself is the book, the ledger, where that story is stored. Third, everything we see, all of it, bubbles up from a much deeper quantum level. And finally, the whole show is driven by one simple goal: to minimize surprise. So, if reality is a giant computation, you gotta ask, what's it running on? What's the hardware? Let's take a look at the fundamental source code and the operating system rules that are supposedly governing the entire cosmos. The source code for absolutely everything is called the Ruliad. The best way to think of it is like the ultimate video game engine. But instead of running just one game, it's the shimmering, tangled-up potential of every possible game and every possible outcome, all existing at once. It's the raw, informational clay that reality gets molded from. But pure potential can't just be chaos. It needs rules, and that's where the hypervisor comes in. These are just the fundamental constants of physics we all know, like the speed of light, the gravitational constant, and Planck's constant. They're like the unchangeable system rules that tell the Ruliad what it can and can't do, making sure the universe's story stays logical and consistent. So, how does this super abstract hardware and software actually create the world we live in? How do we get our familiar space-time from this sea of information? Well, the theory uses a pretty cool modern analogy for this. It says that space-time is basically a cosmic blockchain. Every single event, every particle interaction, every choice is a transaction. And once it happens, it's recorded. This makes space-time a permanent, unhackable ledger of everything that has ever been resolved from possibility into reality. And this framework gives us a brilliant way to think about time. The past, that's like the confirmed blocks on the chain. It's logged history, it's done, you can't change it. The present moment, the now, that's the active write head. It's where new transactions are happening and being committed to the ledger. And the future? Well, that's just the unwritten potential, a kind of probabilistic wobble of things that could happen, waiting to be written into the story. So what about a force like gravity? Where does that fit in? In this model, gravity isn't some fundamental force pulling things together. Instead, it's more like cosmic bookkeeping. It's an emergent property of the system, acting like an auditor that makes sure all the information on the ledger gets packed in as neatly and efficiently as possible, keeping the whole record clean and organized. Okay, so we have the hardware, we have the software, we have the ledger. But what's powering it all? What's the motivation? What's the prime directive that keeps this whole cosmic computer running? Why does the universe even bother to write its own story? The engine is a concept called the free energy principle. Now, that sounds complicated, but the core idea is actually pretty simple. It says that every system in the universe, from a tiny atom to a giant galaxy to your own brain, is basically trying to do one thing: minimize surprise. It does this by constantly making a model of the world, and then trying to make the world fit its model or updating its model when it's wrong. It all comes down to this simple, universal learning loop. Step 1, a system makes a prediction. Step 2, it senses the world and measures the difference between its prediction and what actually happened. That gap, that's surprise. And step 3, it updates its internal model so it can make a better prediction next time. This little loop is supposedly the engine of all learning and creation in the entire cosmos. All right, this is where the theory gets truly personal. We've been talking about the whole cosmos, but what about us? What's our role in this epic self-writing story? Well, it turns out we aren't just reading the book. We might just be some of its most important authors. According to this theory, life and especially complex critters like us are incredibly efficient, surprise-minimizing machines. We don't just exist on the ledger. We are systems that have evolved to actively read information from it, and this is the crucial part, write new information back onto it with every single thing we do and see. So what is consciousness in this model? It's our biological operating system. Its first job is to act like a spam filter for the universe, sorting through all the overwhelming data and focusing only on what we need to survive. And its second and most mind-blowing job is to be the right function. Your conscious, subjective experience is the very mechanism that commits your reality to the permanent cosmic record. So, okay, why does any of this matter to you? Well, this theory gives us a new way to look at our own lives. For example, anxiety could just be the feeling of computational overload when you're trying to predict a really chaotic system, like another person's behavior. Culture and AI become these incredible tools we've built to help us find patterns in the universe faster. But the biggest takeaway is this: your personal experience matters profoundly. Every choice you make, every little thing you notice, is a commit, a permanent sentence added to the universe's autobiography. And that leaves us with one final, really powerful thought to chew on. If this grand cosmic story is constantly being written, and you are one of its authors holding the pen for your own corner of reality, what sentence are you writing today?